The Battle of Gettysburg. It's a name that echoes through history. A moment so pivotal it feels like it must have been meticulously planned. A grand showdown set by generals poring over maps. But the truth is, it was an accident. It began as a scramble for supplies, a chance encounter. Two massive armies, the Union's Army of the Potomac and the Confederacy's Army of Northern Virginia, were maneuvering through Pennsylvania. The Confederates, hearing rumors of a shoe supply in the small town of Gettysburg, sent a division to investigate. What they found instead was Union cavalry. What started as a minor skirmish on July 1, 1863, quickly escalated. Both commanders, Robert T. Lee for the South and George Meade for the North, recognized the strategic importance of the high ground around the town. They hurried their forces to the fight. What was supposed to be a supply run exploded into the largest and bloodiest battle ever fought on American soil. For 3 brutal days, the hills, ridges, and fields around Gettysburg, names like Little Round Top, Cemetery Hill, and the Devil's Den became scenes of unimaginable horror and heroism. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and the screams of the wounded. The first day saw the Union forces push back through the town, but they managed to secure the strong defensive positions on the high ground south of Gettysburg. The second day was a whirlwind of Confederate assaults on both flanks of the Union line. The fighting was desperate, hand-to-hand in many places, as Union soldiers fought with grim determination to hold their ground. Each Confederate attack was repulsed, but at a terrible cost to both sides. The Union line bent, but it did not break. By the morning of the third day, July 3rd, Lee knew he was running out of options. His attacks on the flanks had failed. He decided on a desperate, audacious gamble, a massive frontal assault against the center of the Union line on Cemetery Ridge. It was a move born of confidence, or perhaps desperation. He believed his Virginians were invincible. That one more powerful push could shatter the Union Army and win the war. Around 1 in the afternoon, the battlefield fell silent. Then, the ground began to shake. Nearly 170 Confederate cannons opened fire in the largest artillery barrage of the war, trying to soften the Union defenses. For 2 hours, the air was filled with a deafening roar and exploding shells. When the bombardment finally ceased, the smoke cleared to reveal a truly terrifying sight. Nearly 12,500 Confederate soldiers, arranged in a line almost a mile wide, began marching out of the woods and across a vast, open field. This was Pickett's charge. They marched with perfect discipline, flags flying, bayonets gleaming in the sun. It was a magnificent, yet suicidal, spectacle. The Union artillery, which had cleverly conserved its ammunition during the Confederate barrage, opened up with devastating effect. Cannon fire tore huge gaps in the advancing lines. As they got closer, Union rifle fire joined the chorus of death. The Confederates wavered, but they kept coming, pressing onward into a storm of lead. A small number, a few hundred brave men, actually managed to breach the Union line at a stone wall, a spot now known as the high-water mark of the Confederacy. But they were too few, their support gone. They were quickly killed or captured. The charge was a catastrophic failure. The survivors stumbled back across the open field, a broken and defeated remnant of the proud army that had marched forward just an hour before. Lee, witnessing the disaster, rode out to meet his shattered troops, repeating, "It is all my fault." He had risked everything and lost. The Army of Northern Virginia had suffered a blow from which it would never truly recover. The next day, on July 4th, Lee began his sorrowful retreat back to Virginia. The invasion of the North was over. The Confederacy would never again be strong enough to launch a major offensive. Gettysburg was the beginning of the end. 4.5 months later, in November 1863, the battlefield was quiet again, transformed into a national cemetery. President Abraham Lincoln was invited to offer a few appropriate remarks at the dedication ceremony. The main speaker of the day had delivered a 2-hour-long speech. When Lincoln rose to speak, he held just a few notes. He spoke for only about 2 minutes. But in those 272 words, he did something profound. He didn't just eulogize the dead, he redefined the entire purpose of the war. He spoke of a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He framed the bloody conflict not just as a fight to preserve the Union, but as a test to see if a nation founded on such principles could long endure. He urged the living to dedicate themselves to the unfinished work, for which the soldiers had given the last full measure of devotion. He concluded with a powerful vision of a new birth of freedom, ensuring that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. The words were simple, elegant, and direct. Their impact was eternal. The Gettysburg Address transformed the war's meaning, lifting it from a political dispute to a moral crusade for the future of democracy itself. Following the turning point at Gettysburg, the nature of the war itself began to change. The Union, now under the overall command of a general who truly understood the grim arithmetic of victory, embraced a new and brutal strategy: total war. That general was Ulysses S. Grant. Grant was not a flashy strategist like Lee. He was a bulldog. His philosophy was simple: find the enemy, attack him as hard as you can, and keep moving forward. He understood that the Union's greatest advantages were its superior numbers and industrial might. He was willing to trade lives for momentum, knowing that the Confederacy could not afford to replace its losses, while the Union could. In the spring of 1864, Grant launched his overland campaign, pressing Lee's army relentlessly in a series of bloody battles in Virginia, the Wilderness, Spotsylvania Courthouse, Cold Harbor. The casualty lists were staggering. Many in the North were horrified, calling Grant the Butcher. But Grant never let up. He kept hammering away, pinning Lee's army down and bleeding it dry. He wasn't just fighting an army. He was fighting a nation's will to continue. Meanwhile, another Union general, William Tecumseh Sherman, put this philosophy of total war into devastating practice in the Deep South. After capturing the vital city of Atlanta, Sherman embarked on his infamous March to the Sea. His goal was not just to defeat Confederate armies, but to destroy the South's entire infrastructure and its ability to wage war. He cut a 60-mile-wide path of destruction across Georgia, burning buildings, tearing up railroad tracks, and confiscating supplies. His army lived off the land, destroying anything of military value they couldn't use. The psychological impact was as important as the physical destruction. Sherman wanted to make Georgia howl. He brought the war to the civilian population, showing them that their government could not protect them. He aimed to break their morale, to crush their spirit and hope. From Georgia, he turned north, bringing the same destructive campaign through the Carolinas. The goal was no longer just battlefield victory. It was complete and utter exhaustion of the enemy. By the spring of 1865, the Confederacy was collapsing from the inside out. Grant's relentless pressure had Lee's army pinned down in a siege at Petersburg, Virginia. Sherman's campaign had ravaged the heartland. The Union naval blockade had choked off foreign supplies. Confederate cities were starving. Its armies were shrinking, racked by desertion as soldiers left to go home and protect their families. The Southern economy had disintegrated. Hope, once so defiant, had faded into despair. The end was near. The grand, tragic experiment of the Confederacy was in its final, agonizing days. Thank you for watching. If you found this chapter of history compelling, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for the final part of the American Civil War.